Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the November Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board in collaboration with the Department of Housing Stability. My name is Daryl Watson. My pronouns are he, him. And this is our, possibly, I believe, our final meeting of 2022. I see Katie shaking her head. So yes, this is our final meeting of 2022. I hope folks are enjoying the snow. I'm not enjoying the cold, but at least the snow has been good. And I think the response from host and service providers to those that are unsheltered and living on outside, that response, I think, has been a great response. And I look forward to hearing from Britta on some of the other specific things that hosts will be doing throughout the winter for any of these advisories, as well as ensuring that all of our communities are safe during the winter time. I'll begin, kick off the meeting with our usual land acknowledgement. We're going to wait a few moments to have a full quorum of board members before we approve the minutes. So I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. The Department of Housing Stability and Housing Stability Strategic Advisors honors and acknowledges that the land on which we reside is a traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver. So let me do a roll call and just take a quick look to see which board members are actually present. Katie, from your view of folks that you've led on, do we have 6 board members present?
I believe we only have 5 right now, but I know that Josh is planning to join.
Okay, perfect. So I'll not actually, maybe we can transition to public comment, which allows for members of the public to provide 3 minutes of comment to the Department of Housing Stability, to the HSSA board on any topic that they choose to. So while we're waiting for additional board members to join, let's open this the meeting to public comment. And if there are folks in the public that would like to speak, please raise your hand. If you do not have access to come forward and present and make a comment, Katie will help you with that. If you do, then simply just unmute. And for 3 minutes, looking forward to hearing your comments. So Katie will pause for a moment and see if there are any folks in the public that want to make comments this morning.
Daryl, I'm not seeing any members of the public on the attendee list right now. We have some host staff. If anybody would like to unmute and give any comments to this body, you can go ahead and do so.
Seeing and hearing none, instead of going to the approval of minutes, Britta, if you are available and able to jump in, why don't we transition to you, then we'll come back to the board for minutes when Josh is able to join.
I am just seconds from being able to be on my computer and be seen. So actually, if we could just wait 1 more minute, I'll be ready.
No problem at all. We can do a kind of a purview of the minutes. We have 5 board members on. I'm going to ask the board members to review to review the minutes received. And if there are any discussions or questions about the minutes that we have, we can actually use this time to do that. I always encourage board members to look to make sure that they're listed as present or absent. If that's correct or incorrect, that we can make an update, or if there are any specific material items listed within the minutes that you would like to provide feedback on, now is your time. So let's give the board about 2 minutes to review the minutes. We won't call for a motion. We just simply would have our review and discussion at this point. So we'll give the board members about 2 minutes.
Okay, Britta, I just promoted you to panelist. Yep. Okay, there you go. Should be able to talk now.
Thank you so much, Katie, for doing that. Board members, let's pause before any comments, and we'll just turn this over to Britta and team to provide updates.
All right, good to be with you all this morning. Sorry, my computer kind of crashed earlier, and it's good to be with you all on this Friday, the snowy Friday. I'm fresh off of being with our team yesterday at our State of Host Day. We've celebrated now 3 years as Department of Housing Stability, and so thank you, Daryl, for kicking us off. It's great to be at this point where we have now a bigger staff to do this work, that we have our Housing Stability Strategic Advisor supporting this work and giving us feedback. But really, I was just so warmed last night to see our outreach team leave directly from our team gathering and training out into the street to help connect people to shelter. We set up emergency shelter at the Carla Madison Recreation Center last night. Big kudos to Jared Powell and to Jared and all the team that was working on that. It was quite an endeavor, and it paid off in a lot of people, dozens and dozens being inside last night. So thank you all for your efforts. I know there's several host team members here working with so many other agencies like our partners at Parks and Rec and our safety partners to get folks to the right places. So thank you all. I do have a few updates for everyone. Besides the severe weather being put into test last night, we also did develop a handout about that was sent out to you all and was discussed with City Council earlier this week. We also have had the Legacy Lofts grand opening. Mayor Michael B. Hancock was there for October to celebrate the launch of this first of its kind mixed use development to serve housing and healthcare needs of people experiencing homelessness. It was also pronounced John Parvinsky Day, as we all know that John Parvinsky is retiring from his position at the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And John would be the first to say, then put all the emphasis on what the team has done, and this Renaissance Legacy Lofts will meet the immediate healthcare needs for 500 people experiencing homelessness annually through 75 recuperative care beds, as well as 98 units of supportive, affordable housing. So we are excited to have that project here in the community. We also celebrated the grand opening of the reserves at Green Valley Ranch. This is a mixed income apartment community providing affordable housing for low and moderate income households. It was developed by the Overland Property Group, and the reserves has 216 affordable homes, with 144 of those being income restricted and affordable housing. So very exciting to see that investment in Green Valley Ranch. We also saw the FACTS partnership become yet another nonprofit here in Denver that is going to use a hotel motel for sheltering people experiencing homelessness and then converting it to housing. So the council approved a contract between the city and the FACTS partnership to help support the acquisition of the Westerner and the Sand and Sage motels, located at 8405 and 8415 East Colfax Avenue. And this uses ARPA funds and will provide temporary shelter space for families that are experiencing homelessness and a site for future affordable housing development in East Colfax. So lots of exciting things. And then that leads us to the final exciting thing, which is our budget was approved by council. That's now $254 million for housing and homelessness. A majority of this tranche of ARPA funds are going for housing and homelessness purposes, and we've discussed those in previous meetings, but we're just really excited about that. So all of those things are exciting, and we are looking for more people to be a part of Housing Stability Strategic Advisors. We have Maria Sepulveda, who has moved on to a new position with Habitat International. We congratulate her. And sadly, she has responsibilities now that will not allow her to continue in her role on this body. So we have a few seats that we need to fill between hers and Marcia's. And so we'll be reviewing applicants for those seats. And if you know anyone, please make sure they've got those applications in. We're also excited that Quika and Myra are in the process of being reappointed by City Council, and Josh and Randy are in the process of being reappointed by the mayor. So thank you all for agreeing to serve another term. I think it's great to have that consistency in this group as we welcome additional voices as well. So lots going on, very excited, very exciting, and very encouraged to see how everyone has come together to help serve people, especially on nights like we had last night.
Thank you so much, Britta. And once again, thank you, team, for being so responsive to the folks who rely on us the most. I know from folks in communities have communicated to me their appreciation of the Collin Madison Rec Center. So working in collaboration with DPR to make that available for as a warming center was fantastic. Thank you, and thank you to everyone on the call that responded last night. I will continue to respond as our temperatures continue to remain cool. So I'm running. Britta, from your team, is there any other updates? And then if not, then I'll turn it over to Sabrina for reappointment announcements. And then we'll go back to the board. Welcome, Thomas, and we'll do a review of the minutes and approval of the minutes before we turn into the action plan and final review and vote.
I think those were the highlights, but since we have this picture up, yes, I do like putting on a pink inflatable unicorn outfit once in a while just to see all the smiles. This was our chili lunch that we had as a staff, and a little bit of costume action there on Halloween. So I also point out here, Brad Weinig went full in, got the facial hair going for Brad Bunny. His riff on Bad Bunny. I have to say our team works really hard, but we also know how to have some fun, and just appreciate the staff being so engaged.
I love that. It's great. All right, Sabrina.
Daryl, I think Britta really covered what I
it?
had on that update. So those folks that Britta mentioned are in the process of reappointment. That will happen in December. And then we should have those reappointments for official announcement by our January meeting. And then we are hoping that we'll have those 2 additional seats filled to announce in January as well.
Perfect. I didn't want to skip you since your name was on the agenda.
It's all good. Thank you.
And Katie, I'm gonna mess with your movement of the slides because we're gonna go back to the approval of the minutes. So it's a procedural step, but I think it's an important step. Thomas, thank you for joining. We now have a quorum of the board. We took a few minutes to review the minutes at the top of the hour to ensure that that there weren't any changes. I'll give the board a few more seconds, and at that point, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes. That's a few seconds for review. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions about the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, I ask the board members, if you don't mind coming off of mute instead of us doing a full roll call, asking for each one to say yay or nay. I'll just ask for acclamation for all those in favor, say yes.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing and seeing none, our minutes are approved.
Hey, Daryl, who was the second on that?
It was me, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Katie, for clarifying that. And with that, we'll turn it over to the action plan, final review. And for the board members, thank you for taking time to review. I know Randy's not on the call, and so he provided at least a narrative from a community member that he supports the work that we are doing. And so once Jennifer presents this, Jennifer, I'm not sure if you have received that email from Randy. I could read through what was stated, not all of it, just the gist of it. Then I'll open it up to the board for any other questions before we go to a review and a call for a vote. So thank you so much, Jennifer, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Daryl. I have not received that email from Randy yet, so it would be wonderful if you could share that as we get through kind of our overview this morning. But good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all. This morning, we are here to talk about our final 2023 action plan. So as this group knows, we have been talking about our action plan for a few meetings now, presenting our draft plan back in September. We've been hard at work getting community feedback and revising based on that feedback. So today I'm going to cover kind of a brief reminder and level set on some of the biggest priorities in the plan for next year. I'll also then talk about that community engagement and what we heard and the changes that we've made. And then we will open it up for discussion and questions and bring it to you all for a vote. So just as that level set, some of our key priorities for the year ahead. In 2023, we plan to create and preserve more than 1,700 affordable homes. This is more than 20% toward our 7,000 unit total goal over 5 years, made possible through American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We are also focusing in the year ahead, again, with the support of those American Rescue Plan Act funds and expanding pathways to homeownership, both through down payment assistance and through a focused effort on expanding our stock of affordable for sale homes. In our housing stability space, we plan to serve more than 8,000 households in the year ahead, including more than 1,700 in eviction legal defense programs and 250 in new foreclosure prevention and homeowners association or HOA fee assistance. In our homelessness resolution work, we plan to serve more than 2,500 households experiencing homelessness in housing programs. Our goal over the 5-year period is to get to 3,000. So this is important progress toward that goal. We will house more than 1,700 households across our homelessness resolution investments. So getting 1,700 folks back to housing. We will also continue our work to address unsheltered homelessness by implementing encampment decommissioning strategies and continuing our support for safe outdoor space and safe parking programs. We will also really be focusing in on our homelessness resolution system for families through investment in hotel options for families in need of shelter and expanding case management and housing. Additional priorities for the year ahead. We are looking forward to commissioning a disparity study in 2023 that will document racial disparities and discrimination in housing and propose solutions that can help us further our work to advance equity. Disparity studies is a tool that has been used to support minority and women-owned business programs in Denver and across the country, and we're seeing communities start to use this tool to see how we can continue our work to advance equity in housing. So something we're excited about. We also plan to release a publicly available financial dashboard to provide transparency into how Host uses its resources. This dashboard will complement the strategic plan dashboard that I know we've shown to this group and are continuing to build out that shows progress toward plan goals. The financial dashboard will provide additional insight into how we're using our resources. Additionally, we are expanding our functionality within Host to use our data systems to further our goals around more efficient financial procurement and contracting processes by building out our data systems to do more of that work electronically and in a more streamlined way. And lastly, we are implementing in the year ahead on a number of our big policy gains from 2022. And one of those is to implement our affordable housing prioritization policy. The policy itself has an effective date of July 2024. So in 2023, the Department of Housing and Stability team will be hard at work with rules and regs and all of the things to plan for implementation. But one feature is also the build out of a data system that will help us implement that policy, but also create a more streamlined, accessible kind of single source of information for affordable housing citywide. So we are excited to be building that out for our community. These next couple slides talk a bit about our engagement. This first slide talks about some of the activities and the work that we did to hear from folks. So first, as part of our work on our 2023 action plan, Host really sought to leverage citywide work that was already underway around recovery priorities. And as I think we've presented in this space before, housing and homelessness really emerged as a top priority from those recovery engagement efforts. We have, of course, also been engaging with you all during this process and posted our plan for a 30-day public comment period in September. So the plan was posted and available for anyone in the community to give us feedback. We coupled that with a survey to bring that feedback into us. And then we also held a public meeting on the plan so folks could hear about it, have the opportunity to ask questions, and also give us feedback in that format. Efforts. So we continue to hear in this work the importance of addressing housing and homelessness here in Denver. So really underscoring the importance of this plan. We also continue to hear feedback on the unauthorized camping ordinance, and we hear feedback on that really across a spectrum of perspectives, both from community members who would like to see enforcement actions stop related to enhancements, and from folks who would like to see those continue or happen at a greater scale. Because Host is not an enforcement entity for the unauthorized camping ordinance, we do bring that feedback to citywide spaces and agencies that have a more direct relationship with that policy. We also really heard a number of comments that underscored a need to clarify how Host works with our broad city team to provide services, both in our housing space, but also in things that really complement that and support that work. So things like workforce supports, things like behavioral health, so that people have all of those pieces that they need to thrive in their lives. And so you'll see in the final plan, we have added that section on community engagement and feedback, really tried to reinforce a lot of those partnerships. That's information that's in our very long 5-year plan, but wanted to reinforce that and do that in this more accessible, shorter document so folks can see that. We also heard some interest in adaptive reuse opportunities on the development side. And so we're able to point folks to a study that's underway with community planning and development right now to look into those opportunities. And also emphasize that we are really doing that already in this plan with our use of hotel motels. Next slide. All right, so just to briefly summarize some of the minor revisions, we'll talk about the more major revisions here in a second. So to some of the feedback we got, I think, spoke to a need to reinforce not only the goals of the different pillars of host work, but also functionally what components of our work sit in different parts of this plan. And so you'll see we added some introductory paragraphs to try to clarify that and make it really clear what are the activities going on in our housing stability pillar, what work does rest in our housing opportunity space, and so on. We also added some additional call out boxes to describe additional topics throughout the plan. So things like our DHA, Denver Housing Authority, Delivers for Denver initiative and performance-based contracting, which were featured in the plan. We also made an update to our housing opportunity section to reflect that coordination with our Division of Real Estate here in the city will continue into the future on property acquisition opportunities. So some of the more major revisions, the more substantive pieces that you may have seen in your review over the past week. So we did add that new section on community engagement and feedback. We also added an additional 5-year target that we were able to calculate between the draft plan being posted and the final plan being ready for you all. We had needed to fill in our target for foreclosures in income restricted homes. We found that that is relatively rare in our income restricted portfolio at about 10 per year. And so our goal by 2026 is to bring that down to 0. We also had work planned, but wanted to further highlight based on some of the feedback that we received around behavioral health, that our homelessness resolution pillar is planning to pilot dedicated behavioral health and case management services that's really focused on people experiencing homelessness who have complex care needs. So things like being potentially also needing support with activities of daily living, assisted living, skilled nursing, primary care, behavioral health care, legal services. So really needing that a focused case management approach for folks with those complex needs. So that's something we are planning to pilot next year and wanted to call greater attention to that. And then we also, as the city budget process has continued to move forward since we published our draft plan, we also updated the financial landscape section. We updated the budget charts, and I'm going to go through those updates here in the next couple of slides. And we also worked on the narrative of that section to make it more clear how our budget supports housing activities. So this slide is our 2023 projected revenue based on the latest budget book information available at time of writing. So this brings our total projected revenue for 2023 to just under $249.5 million. So you can see the breakdown. This is just a little bit less than what we had in the draft plan that went out in September. One thing to highlight that is a positive result for us since that draft plan, our homelessness resolution fund section here, that $48.9 million. We had a ballot measure in November that where voters needed to reapprove our ability to keep that full amount because collections exceeded the estimate on the original ballot measure in 2020. And voters overwhelmingly said yes to that. So we are glad to be able to have that $48.9 million in our budget in 2023. This slide shows our planned expenditures by our pillars of host. And we did update this based from the draft plan that went out in September as we refined how we were categorizing different kind of new expenditures in the budget. So you'll see about 41% of our total budget is going to housing opportunity. We also tried to more closely visually show that our payments to the DHA Delivers for Denver or D3 program is really closely related to our housing opportunity work. It's just dollars that are invested that we do not directly invest as hosts, but rather provide to DHA. So if we add that DHA portion, we have 45% of the budget going to housing opportunity and the D3 program. 4% are going to our housing stability pillar, 47% is going to homelessness resolution, and 4% is going to our operations work. This next slide shows our planned expenditure by investment types. So what types of services or activities of host is our budget going toward? And what we've tried to do with this update to this chart is really more clearly show how much of our budget is going directly to housing. So you can see 32% of our total budget is going to host direct investment in unit development and preservation. 4% is going to unit development and preservation via the D3 program. And then 17% is going to housing assistance. And overall, that makes up more than half of our budget. 41% is going to shelter and services as we continue to navigate our transition from COVID recovery sheltering and additional sheltering during the pandemic. And then 7% is going toward administration. I will say too, we also added kind of more explanatory notes on these charts. We did get some questions from folks around like, what is the difference between operations in the chart on the previous slide, administration on this slide? So we've really tried to clarify those distinctions in the plan as well. And then as this group knows, our requested action for you all today is to vote to recommend the 2023 action plan as presented to the Executive Director of the Department of Housing Stability for implementation. I'm happy to take any questions or feedback that you have for us this morning.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the update. Thank you for the team that pulled together kind of the highlights of the slide in the slide presentation. I know it was a good amount of information for the HSSA board members. The email that was sent out by Katie was not the first time board members have had a chance to review some of the targets, some of the options, and many of the board members have participated in community input and community engagement. And so this is me stalling a bit before I start asking board members if they have questions. But I do want to, really highlight, since this is members of the public may have an opportunity to review, will have an opportunity to review this video. The Department of Housing Stability provides several engagements for this board over several months to review actions, to provide feedback, and has been, from my perspective, responsive for questions that folks may have by email from this board. So as you see the board participating and asking questions today, this is not our first jump into it. This is not the first opportunity that we've had. And my hope is that board members have some questions today, some clarifications, and that we can dive into asking for a motion on whether we approve or move forward this 5-year plan. So stalling has concluded. Let me ask board members if you don't mind, and we're not going to do a roll call per se, folks going through the whole list, but want to open up to any board members that have specific questions for Jennifer, or any of the leaders within the Department of Housing Stability. And Jennifer, I began my kind of transition to your presentation by stating that there was a email communication that was sent from Julie Raskin from Cross Disability. She's the executive director there. I know that Julie's email is going to be added to the comments that we received from the public, so I won't elevate her voice. Her email was precise, very clear as to what she was thinking, and I'll allow for the department to respond as they normally do in due course. So board members, giving you an opportunity, please, any questions you have for staff or for Britta, anyone on the 5-year plan. And if you don't have questions, what are your thoughts? First, not first, but your maybe 50th impression of this document as it's coming up for a vote. Where are you as far as the communities you serve? And Josh, I saw your hand go up. thoughts you have for staff and for Britta.
Hello, everyone. I would just say I think this does a really good job of trying to encapsulate all the different realities of what homelessness is in our community, and all the work that is being done and all the work that still has to be done. And so I would say, well done. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Josh. Any other, Jenny, I see your hand.
Hi, and apologize for the airport noise. I agree. I think there are so many needs that's tricky to find the resources for all of them. I'm going to continue to continually appreciate that host staff is looking at the housing stability need, and with my staff's worry about increased eviction, but it looks like there's some decent resource in there for this year, and I know I'm glad to see how well we're doing on housing production. So I appreciate all the detail as well.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Any other impressions, any other thoughts? And your voice as the HSSA board may not be your individual thoughts or impressions. It is for the communities that you serve. So I know each of the communities that we come from may have some thoughts in the initial feelings about this 5-year plan. Would love to hear from your voice or the voice from folks in your community. So Jennifer and team, I have a few questions, and I'm not sure if within the 5-year plan, because our prior plan didn't have, the initial 5-year plan didn't have this in it. And so this may not apply to this, but I'm curious as to your thinking and for the leadership of HOST. As we saw with Governor Polis, and I'm going to go from a statewide view and then down to a regional. The governor has communicated an interest, and I'll use that term, an interest in statewide being more engaged in housing stability, whether it's funding, whether it's supporting municipalities on priorities, and a host of things. It has been a little bit more of a direct interest communicated, even on election night. I'm curious, from your leadership position within our 5-year planning process, is there an opportunity for a target for statewide collaborative actions? Not even so much a regional approach, but an approach of how we will work going forward with the state, knowing that they haven't provided architecture as yet. But I'm curious as to your thinking, and if iterations of the 5-year plan may be a place where that would be inclusive of that type of collaboration.
Certainly a statewide and regional connection is part of our plan. We don't do any of this alone, right? We interact at the federal level, at the state level, at the regional level, and I consider the governor's kind of change in course of saying that homelessness is a local issue in the past to now saying homelessness is an issue of statewide concern as a real pivotal point that many people on this call and beyond help to influence such a change. And I'm very eager to see, especially as he's talking about transit-oriented development and putting affordable housing in amenity-rich areas like that, how we can seize upon those opportunities. Certainly it's in alignment with our plan. We need to produce it in a lot of places, but certainly always looking for how we can do more by aligning priorities as well.
Thank you so much, Britta, for sharing that. I have another question, and possibly Jennifer may have highlighted that, and I may have missed it. For federal dollars that were through ARPA dollars, is there a sunset for use of those dollars? I'm sure you spoke to it and I may just not have heard it. And what are your thoughts on any impacts that may cause within this 5-year period as far as the reduction of those funds and maybe the escalation of local or state or other funding mechanisms that are necessary?
Daryl, yeah, I can start with the specifics around those ARPA funds. And then would welcome other host folks on this call. Laura, definitely feel free to jump in here too if there's anything from a budget perspective, or Britta. So American Rescue Plan Act funds are time limited funds. There's some information. We have kind of an appendix to the plan with kind of a lot of details on budget things. So I think this content is in that section of the plan if folks are interested in reading a little bit more about American Rescue Plan Act dollars and our other funding sources. But those funds need to be assigned to a use by the end of 2024, and then they need to be spent by the end of 2026. And so the timeline for those ARPA funds to be spent down is consistent with our 5-year plan time horizon. So I will pause there and open it up to other host folks who may have other context to add about our use of ARPA funds.
I would just add that ARPA dollars are very skewed towards capital as their one-time use dollars. And as I work with folks across the region and across the state and across the country, I think the struggles are similar in that these one-time funds aren't paired with a sudden rush of additional operating dollars. So how we can work with partners like the state of Colorado and others in freeing up additional services dollars and operating dollars to be paired with these types of one-time investments will be really important to sustainability and ongoing success.
Thank you so much, Britta. That is very helpful. And I have one more question around the line of on funding. Do we anticipate, and I may have asked the budget team this during our really robust budget discussions, and I just can't recall. But do we anticipate, as far as for our funding, when we consider our bonds over this 5-year period, do we consider a kind of a impacts to the city budget if we're looking at a slowing of the economy, a slowing of sales tax dollars, a slowing of funding possibly within the next mayor's budget? Do we have any forecasting of reductions that are built into a 5-year plan? And I know our plan is nimble enough that every year during the budget process, changes can be made. But I'm curious how that's done, and does the team anticipate, let's say, a 5% decrease over year over year, or something like that? It's a little budgety for the 5-year plan, but my curiosity is on the payout to these really important services that host provides and supports. What's kind of your thinking on that, and looking forward to the big changes next year with a new administration and possibly less revenue from some of our bonds? Wondering if someone could speak to that.
Maybe I'll start, and then if folks have anything to add. We're fortunate in some ways that our Department of Finance here at the City and County of Denver is fairly conservative in their forecasting. So we've actually outperformed their forecasts this past year. That's part of why we had to go back to the voters this year, as we outperformed that projection from 2020 by a bit as well. So we will actually be retaining a lot more funds than were originally budgeted from those sales tax dollars. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be fluctuations, and I'm sure we will continue to have conservative estimates, but hopefully what it means is that when those true up, it will mostly be in our favor based on the conservative practices of the City and County of Denver. Laura, I saw you popped on, and you track this pretty closely.
Sure, happy to add just a little bit more context. I think I will acknowledge to your question, Daryl, that our 2022 and 2023 budget do include an infusion of recovery resources, which Britta acknowledged earlier are one-time resources. So we have a time period by which to spend those resources that goes through 2026, but they were allocated in the 2022 and 2023 budget. So I want to reflect and acknowledge that those are recovery specific resources. The other thing I wanted to just acknowledge is that our different sources that are dedicated resources for housing and homelessness, some of those may be market dependent more so than others. Property tax tends to be a stable source that grows steadily and slowly over time. Sales tax, for example, may be more dependent on what spending looks like out in the market. Linkage fee, similarly, which is a per square foot fee on development, may be dependent on how much building is happening out in the market. How many permits are pulled will relate directly to how much is collected in those funds. So while we don't necessarily have a specific projection beyond 2023, I want to acknowledge that some of our sources may be more dependent on market than others. And so those are just a couple of examples. The other place I would just acknowledge where we may see some change over time is that specific linkage fee. We see fluctuations depending on permits pulled, which drives the collection of that fee based on development no matter what. But some policy changes this year will also impact collection in the linkage fee. So the Expanding Housing Affordability Program that was adopted earlier this summer included the adoption of the new mandatory affordable housing program, which requires new residential developments over 10 units to build affordable housing, or there is a fee collected in lieu as an option, as well as some other paths to produce units. But it also changed our linkage fees. It increased linkage fees over the course of several years, but for multifamily development in particular, we will see more buildings participating in that requirement to have about 8 to 12% of their units as affordable, or options under that ordinance to satisfy the requirements, which means that we would see less collection over time in the multifamily linkage fee, because you would never have a linkage fee and a mandatory affordable housing commitment on the same property. So we'll see lower multifamily collection, but because more properties are participating in the mandatory program. So I just want to acknowledge that linkage fee could change. And we know that as part of the adoption of Expanding Housing Affordability. So that's another one that we'll be watching closely over the coming years as far as its collection, both in terms of market and in terms of this policy adjustment.
And Laura, on enhancing housing affordability, is the team looking at kind of our permits and plans on a quarterly or 6-month basis to look at trends, or what's your trending mechanism? Not so much on the linkage fee piece, but on the impacts of the affordable mandate. If there is maybe a need for other action to increase affordable housing, not incentives or whatever, that's city council, but curious as to whether you're doing a quarterly, a 6-month review of any trends that we're seeing.
We are doing our regular collaboration with the community planning and development, which is tracking projects moving through the permitting process. Our teams coordinate very closely on that, and we'll be watching as we move towards implementation. We generally do these projections on an annual basis as far as the upcoming budget, but we'll be watching those things in the interim as well, and communicating very closely with Department of Community Planning and Development.
Very helpful. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Britta. I'll look around the room for just one more second to see other leaders on the call. Any impressions, any final questions before we call for a motion, a second, and a vote? Seeing none, I'm looking for hands. I'm seeing not seeing anyone. So I'm asking for a call of the question. So that is a motion and a second. Is there a board member that would like to move? And this is in the affirmative, to move to approve the 5-year, the 2023 action plan as presented to by the team.
I'll make that motion. Daryl, this is Melanie.
I'll second, Josh.
It's been moved and second. The board has another opportunity to provide additional feedback or questions or comments before the question is called. Are there any additional comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, the question is called. I'm going to ask board members as well to just simply, and so we make sure we get everyone, I'm going to go through the list, and Katie, keep me true to make sure I'm not missing anyone. And I'll start from how the list appears on my screen. And I'll ask, I'll do a roll call from that list. So we'll start first with Jenny. Do you approve, yay or nay?
I approve. Yay.
Josh?
Yay.
Melanie?
Yay.
Myra?
Yay.
Was that a yay, Myra?
Yes.
Okay. Kuika? I'll come back to you, Kuika, but if you're on mute and you're saying yay or nay, you would want to unmute, but we're going to do a roll call on this. So one more time, Kuika. Thomas. And that's
Yes.
yay or nay for the approving the recommendation of the 2023 action plan.
That's a yes.
Let me see if Kuika is there. Did I miss anyone, Katie, outside of myself? And I am a yay.
Nope, I don't believe so. Just Kuika.
Okay. We have the majority of the board. Kuika will be able to, based on this motion still being out there, she will be able to come back and virtually communicate yay or nay, so we can have that listed within the minutes. But all we need is a majority of the board, and we currently have a majority of the board. So congratulations to the community for providing feedback over a long period of time. Congratulations to each of the staff members and Jennifer and team and your leadership of this, articulating the vision of the community. And thank you, Britta and team, for making this such an inclusive process for HSSA board to provide continued feedback and your responsiveness to those questions and recommended edits. So thank you all, and the action plan has passed. We are at the end of our meeting, and usually I say that we're about to adjourn, but let me just see if Britta and team has any final comments, and I have one final statement to make before we adjourn this call.
Daryl, I just wanted to let everybody know that I am working on putting together a calendar for next year's meetings that's very similar to what we had for this year, that kind of identifies the timeframes that we need to have some specific items done. We are looking at moving up our input from you all as we start to think about our priorities for next year, so that we have those done earlier in the year. So I will be getting that out to you guys in the next month, so that we have that before our January meeting, and you have some sense of how we'll be rolling through the year.
And Britta, any final statements or comments before we close?
What a year. I mean, you all have really given some great feedback on what will surely be looked at as one of the bigger years for transformative policy in the city and county of Denver. Marquee type policies like expanding housing affordability, prioritization policy, seeing more than half the resources of ARPA tranche funds going towards housing and homelessness. I think we have, as a community, called for our city to lean in on these issues, and you all, as our champions and our advisors, have really stepped up to ensure that people are hearing those voices, and I think it's worked. And I think you have a lot to be proud of as you look at this budget, as you look at this annual report that was put out recently, and as you look at this action plan, there's plenty to do. Not everything is perfect. We've got more to get done. But when I think about our call to build a worthy vessel out of this department, to receive resources, to get them out to the community and to be responsive, I think we've done that. And I just really am proud of everyone for leaning in and sharing their voices in this. So I hope in the season of gratitude that you feel the gratitude from our department and from me as executive director for all of your time, your energy, and your efforts on behalf of our residents of Denver.
Thank you so much, Britta. And I'll do a final comment. And I want to say this has been an honor for me as a chair to lead and with you the leadership from Host and more importantly, the leaders on his call from the Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board. I knew about a year ago, it feels a little bit shorter, but I think it's been well over a year that I've been the chair of this board. And in my acceptance of that vote to be chair, I shared a story about my sister who struggled with a whole host of things, but ended up being unsheltered for over a 10-year period, and she passed away, unfortunately, while unsheltered. And how that has motivated me to want to be a part of this board, and then to have the honor of the board members electing me as chair. This has been the most. This has been a consequential year for me, and knowing that the work that we all do within housing stability, that we're saving lives. Each of those numbers, those budget questions that Laura and Jennifer speak to, that's an individual family, and it's never lost on me in these meetings. We're not just moving widgets, we're saving lives. And so thank you so much, Britta, to you and your team. Thank you so much to the leaders of the Housing Stability Board, HASA. I wanted to formally, before I sent my formal letter to Britta and to the administration, I want to formally announce that I will be stepping down as chair of the HASA board. My life is getting a little more complicated, to say the least, but this has been the honor of my 20, 30-year plus engagement within the city to chair this board. I will continue to be a member of this board. I will continue to serve a community, but I wanted to thank you, the board members, for electing me, and I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to raise their hands in January to be the new chair of the HASA Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board. So thank you so much. And as we go into the season of spending more time with family and celebrations, I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of this year, and I can't wait to see you in the new year. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day and your great weekend and a great end of the year.
Thank you, Daryl, for leading us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Grateful for you being our leader.
Our meeting is adjourned. Take care, everyone.